In this video we looked for the UK's smallest owl, the UK's rarest finch, a goose with a fascinating backstory, and we find out if perseverance does actually pay off. This week's birding started with an early morning trip onto the Wirral. Morning folks, I am at Burton Marsh on the Wirral. I'm here to try and tick Little Owl off of our year list, although I've just bumped into someone, another birder, who has been looking and not seen it. So let's see if I can do a better job. Stick with me, let's see if we can find it. To get to the place where the little owl apparently frequents, I had to walk down a long straight path, and initially with farmland on one side and Burton Marsh on the other. On the farmland amongst the sheep there was some rook feeding like this one who walked towards me. As I walked a little further, the farm ended and was replaced by boggy wetland and trees and shrubs. There were a few birds feeding in the shallow marshland, including moorhens and mallards too. And in the trees plenty of small birds, including this blackbird. Further on behind this vegetation there's a large rocky outcrop made of sandstone. This is where our target species, the little owl, apparently hangs out. I walked up and down the sandstone cliff face for some time, scanning every hole and crevice in the wall, hoping to spot a roosting little owl, occasionally peering behind me at the expanse of marsh and the geese and egrets feeding on it. One noisy bird that took my attention was this wren that was skulking about in the low vegetation at the bottom of the cliffs. Pretty soon, another little thing took my attention too. I found him. He's on a ledge on like a sandstone cliff type thing in front of me. It took me a while to find him, scanning every hole in the wall, but he's there. I'm hoping I can find him again now because I can't see him with my naked eye. He's only little. He was there in a hole in the sandstone, seemingly relaxed on one leg, peering towards the floor, as if something had gained his attention. Although I'm referring to this owl as a male, I have no idea if it's male or female. If you know, please comment. After a couple of moments, the owl stopped looking down and looked straight at me. It must have heard me, as owls have exceptional hearing, being able to hear a mouse's heartbeat from 8 meters away. This little owl's a real cutie and is looking straight at me. As this wonderful owl was quite distant and it was a little breezy, I was struggling to keep the camera still until I came up with an ingenious but rather ramshackle plan to get steady footage. I've rigged my camera up on a post facing the owl. I've put like a little bit of timber found on the floor underneath to level it. Little owls are the UK's smallest owl, but aren't native. They were introduced in the 19th century, and now there's somewhere in the region of 5,700 pairs. Although numbers have declined, between 1995 and 2008, the UK population was down by an estimated 24%. Lucky for me, this individual seemed pretty settled where it was, giving me distant but great views. What an awesome little bird. Happy with my little owl sighting, I headed back down the path, with the bushes on the side of me alive with birdsong, and a very tinkly sound came from this species, the reasonably common but pretty stunning goldfinch. Further down the path I heard a loud and very familiar birdsong, but wasn't expecting to actually see the bird that was making it. Yes, it's a Chetty's warbler. This species is only usually heard from deep in undergrowth, so seeing one out in the open like this was an unusual treat. And as expected, after a couple of moments of singing, it retreated back into dense vegetation, so I headed back towards the car. Well, that owl was amazing, and I also got a Chetty's warbler on the way back, which are more often heard than seen. Excellent result. And now a little story about determination and perseverance, and how sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't. And on this occasion it was a trip to the Wirral to look for a bird we have seen this year on our year list, but at a ridiculously far distance, the American black scoter.
When one was reported at Hoylake on the Wirral, I thought, well, it's time to get some better footage for our viewers, but little did I know it was going to be quite a task, resulting in about 4 attempts at trying to see it. The first one being straight after work, still in my work uniform, wading across wet sand. Finally arriving at the tide line, not only was it quite windy, the heat haze was horrendous. Even close in, all of the Scoters looked like black blurs. I did stick around for a while, but no definitive sightings of the black Scoter. So, disappointed, I traipsed back, only to return a second time, and to better weather, although the Scoters that were present were almost always very distant. And although, again, I couldn't pick out the black Scoter amongst the huge flock of common Scoters in the distance, the stars of the show were the sanderling. These small and quite comical little waders were moving down the beach in small flocks, then landing and running up and down the sand feeding. As some of the other birders with scopes were looking for the black Scoter, I was happily sat on the floor, absolutely transfixed and deeply entertained by these comedic little wading birds. This species breeds in the extreme northern hemisphere in the Arctic Circle, but then migrate and can be found on every continent barring Antarctica in winter. What stunning little birds. I'd love to have watched them for longer, but I had to head back now, and again with no black Scoter sighting. So guess what I did? Yes, I went back a third time. You'd think I'd give up on a bird we've already had this year on the year list, but no, I had a bee in my bonnet. So I headed across the expanse of wet sand back to the shore. Again, it was quite hazy, but this time I had other birders with me, so I felt more confident with more eyes on the job. One challenge came in the way of haze, which although did lift gradually as we waited, again no black Scoter. The highlight was a female eider on the sea, so I left the other birders behind and headed again back towards the car, empty-handed. Surely now it was time to give up. No, not me, I hate being beaten. So, among a few other birders, I traipsed across Hoylake shore again towards the tide line, this time in more sensible footwear. Unfortunately, when I arrived, the conditions weren't really perfect for spotting birds on the sea, as it was unbelievably choppy, with any visible Scoters dropping behind waves and then lifting up for a fraction of a second. So actually picking the black Scoter out from these masses of common Scoter at a distance with waves would be almost impossible. So I finally waved the white flag and gave up. The moral of this story being is sometimes perseverance really does pay off, but occasionally it doesn't. So with this crushing disappointment, I headed down the coast to Parkgate to see what was there before the sun went down.
Hey folks, I'm at Parkgate on the Wirral. This place is great for kind of geese. I can hear pink-footed geese in the distance now actually. And birds of prey too that hunt over the marsh. So marsh harriers are pretty likely here, but they even occasionally have hen harriers.
It didn't take me very long to find the pink-footed geese that were making all the noise. There was a large flock of them on the marsh and a few flying in too. Upon scanning these geese, my attention was taken by another bird, as promised a moment ago, a marsh harrier, and this one a female, and remarkably close. It flew, then hovered for a short while, and then dropped into the reeds themselves. And after watching the space for some time, it lifted, but without anything. It may not have caught what it was looking for, or it ate it really quickly. Regardless, it then flew across the marsh into the distance. Now I got back to scanning through the ever-increasing numbers of pink-footed geese that were in front of me, and quite soon I found something really interesting. Whilst looking through this nearby group of geese, I spotted one with a neck ring. It did take me a few minutes to figure out what it said. This white ring had black writing on it that read TXU. This is when things got even more interesting. Upon arriving home, I emailed the Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust in the hope to get some more information about this goose, and they emailed me back with some really fascinating information. This individual's a female and was rung as a juvenile in December 2007 in the Angus region of Scotland. It spent a year or so around Perth and Kinross, then moved down to Aberdeenshire until April 2009. It then spent 2 years in Lancashire, mainly at Martin Mere, but did take a bit of a trip to Crosslands Outer Marsh. During this time, she had 2 goslings, then nipped to Lincolnshire, then Cumbria, then back to Martin Mere in September 2014, and then wasn't seen for 10 years. Fascinatingly, after a decade of absence, it showed up in Norfolk in December 2024, and then was seen and reported by myself in Parkgate on the Wirral in March this year. Finding out this amazing information is a testament to how important bird ringing is. We've been able to follow this wonderful goose on her trips around the UK. The sun was now beginning to set on Parkgate, but the golden skies weren't empty. They were punctuated by hunting marsh harriers. I noticed about 5 of them hunting, gliding effortlessly across the marshes. I was unable to tell if these birds were male or female, as they were just silhouettes against the now burnt orange sky. Not only was this mesmerising, it was amazing to see a bird that's now quite rare in the UK, with a breeding population of between 600 and 700. I watched them until it was almost completely dark, and as I was about to leave, my parting gift was this great white egret that landed right in front of me. What a fantastic end to an afternoon's birding on the Wirral. A few days later I was on the way to work, but left home with a couple of hours to spare and a destination in mind.
Hey folks, I'm at a churchyard near Ruthin in North Wales. I'm on my way to work, but I popped in to try and find one of Kaylee's favourite finches, the Hawfinch. It's notoriously shy and seems to like churchyards, so let's see if we can find one.
Although I had seen Hawfinch at this churchyard in the past, I hadn't the last 3 or 4 times I'd been there, but I was reasonably hopeful, as I know other people who'd seen them here recently. And as I walked through the churchyard, there was plenty of bird life about, including the collared dove, which, although not rare, always seems to turn up late on my year list. Yes, I have seen plenty of them, but just not got footage. The collared dove that was perching on a Y was joined also by a male blackbird. Whilst watching these birds, I did hear a sound behind me that I recognised.
This place is full of bird life. I've already seen a pair of bullfinch in a tree. I can hear a greenfinch, and there's all sorts of other birds about. It's amazing.
While stood watching a dunnock sing its heart out, I did notice another bird in an adjoining tree. This was the bird that I was after, the Hawfinch. Although it was somewhat obscured by the branches in front of it, it was unmistakable with its huge beak and the black bib. After a few minutes of me walking around trying to get better views of it unobstructed by branches, it flew onto another branch that was unobscured, giving me amazing views of this wonderful finch. It sat there out in the open for a few minutes calling, and then flew away out of sight. More than just a little happy that I'd seen the Hawfinch, I decided to stick around a little longer to see if it showed up again. Whilst walking round the churchyard, I picked up another bird for our year list, the nuthatch. This cool little bird was picking up seeds that someone had dropped at the base of a tree. Whilst happily watching the nuthatch, I did hear another bird behind me that was familiar. It was the Hawfinch again. It had come back. I turned round and it was sat right on the top of a conifer, calling. As quickly as it arrived, it flew off again, but was soon replaced by a second Hawfinch. This one was clearly a male bird and a deeply handsome individual. After a short time, I realised there were 3 birds present, but they were very mobile and wouldn't stay in the same place for long. Hawfinch are notoriously shy and easily overlooked. Not only that, they're one of our rarer finches, and with numbers declining in recent years, they're now red listed. This species is Kaylee's favourite finch, as she remembers seeing them as a child with her grandfather. So she may be a bit jealous that I've seen them today. I hope I don't get in trouble. I watched the Hawfinches for a while until they disappeared once again. Not only had I seen the Hawfinch here, but this place had been fantastic for all sorts of other birds too, with various finch species and red kites circling in the skies. As I was about to leave, I heard the greenfinch again, and after a bit of searching, I located it in a bush. This very handsome male bird was sat singing its heart out. This had been a very successful little trip, but unfortunately now I had to go to work. Never mind, more birding soon. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, please subscribe, and please press the notification bell. We'll see you next time.